Welcome back guys. So this is our seventh lecture for the Cypress tutorial. So in this we will discuss the handling the web controls using the Cypress. So the web control that we are using that on a daily basis while the automation like handling the checkboxes, radio button, handling the static drop down and handling the drop down dynamically. These all things we will cover in this lecture. So first thing start with the checkbox and the radio button. For that basically we have the common method check to handle the checkboxes and the radio button in the Cypress. So I will open the website that I'm using for the sample purpose. So here you're able to see that we have the multiple checkboxes, and suppose we have to select the checkbox called mustard, that we have to check, and then again we will uncheck also using the Cypress. So for that basically first we have to identify that particular CSS, and then we will go to our Visual Studio Code, and then we will write the code to check that particular checkbox and uncheck again for that. So for that basically I will identify this element again, open this, and then highlight this checkbox. You are able to see that, just scroll this side, we have the ID, COND is 3. Using the ID we can easily identify using the CSS. So just copy that ID, Control F, and for the ID just we need to put the hash symbol here and then ID. We are uniquely identified this particular checkbox using this ID. Just copy that ID and go to the Visual Studio Code. So here is the code. I will write it again for you. So for we already know that for the handling the checkbox, the Cypress provided a method called check, and that is the correct uses of this check method. Just check in the official website also. Sorry, let's check. So that is the check method, and that is the correct uses of it. cy.get, and then we have to pass the locator to identify that particular checkbox, and then we have the dot check method for the checking. And dot first dot check means it will check the first radio button. It will provide the list. In the list of the web element, you want to check the first checkbox only or the first radio button. Then in case you can say first dot check method. That will basically will check the first checkboxes. But in case currently we are using the check method only because we want to check the fourth checkbox. So we can write the code cy dot get and then the CSS for that particular checkbox, and then method called check. That is sufficient to check that particular checkbox. But if you want to validate that that particular checkbox is checked or not, for that you can put the assertion also. So we already aware the assertion that is provided by the chai framework, that is should. We can use the same should assertion here also to validate that particular checkbox is checked or not. For that just put a dot symbol, and then we can say should, and there is one method available inside that should is b dot visible and b dot checked. So we can use that b dot checked method here. B dot checked method basically is will check that particular checkbox is checked or not, and it will provide the result based on that. To run it, just save this test. It will start running on the Cypress runner. You are able to see that checkbox mustard is checked now, and the assertion is also passed. Means that code is working. Using the check, you can check the checkboxes as well as the radio button. But what if you want to uncheck the checkbox using this code? So for that, similarly, we have one more method called uncheck. Check for the checking and uncheck for the unchecking. It's a simple one. So again, we can write the code like cy dot get and the same CSS, and then method is dot uncheck. And so the session we can use, just a second. Should, and then is a method called b dot unchecked. Just a second, b dot, I think that method is maybe, I will check that method, but first we will check that uncheck code first. Just uncheck it and run it with this code again. So it's checked and validate the assertion and then it's unchecked now. So using that basically check and uncheck method, we can validate that it's properly checking or the checkbox or not. So basically that check and uncheck method we can use. And the assertion part also, I will again check that method like b for that validation purpose. We can say that b dot not checked maybe is there. I will check one by one. Handle the scenario. So these are the basically method that is used for the handling the checkboxes. And then I move to the drop down part. So in the drop down, we are able to see like there are two kind of the drop downs available. In the, one is the static drop down where the value is fixed and we have to select that particular value. And the second one is the dynamic drop down. In the dynamic drop down, basically whatever the input we have provided based on that, the value will come and then we have to select the value in this. So we will first see the how to handle the static drop down and then we'll move to the dynamic one. So for the handling the static drop down, here the method is provided in the Cypress is called select. So we have to provide the cy.get and whatever the locator that we have to identify the drop down, and then we can use the dot select method, and then we have to provide the option value, whatever the option we want to select. To demonstrate this, I will open the website. In this website basically you are able to see that the static drop down is there and we are able to see the district. In this district basically we can select any of one and using the select method. For that first we have to identify the drop down and then we will select the district. So again open that one and identify the element. So the class is called flatbox. We can copy just that class, Control C, Control F. For class, we need to put a dot symbol and then flatbox. We are able easily identify this particular drop down. And again, go to the Visual Studio to complete that code. I'm just commenting this checkbox one. And I already written the code for the static and dynamic drop down. So I will write it again for you. So this code is here. Just a second. Is uncommented and here we want to comment. Okay, so the code is cy dot get and then we have to pass the selector, that is basically the dot flatbox that we have identified, and then the method is called select. Selected the method and then we have to provide the value. So you are able to see like we have the multiple values available here, so you can inspect any value. Just inspect the value. In the option value, you are able to see the option called Aligarh, Allahabad, and all these options are there. Whatever the option you want to select, just copy that value from here and paste it here. It will select the value. So I'm just commenting the first two lines. And in that case, if I run the test case, it will select the district as a Aligarh. So just Control S and it will start running. And you are able to see like Aligarh is selected as a district. It's quite simple for handling the drop down. Static drop down is quite simple. Just we need to provide the identifier and then using the select method, we can easily select that particular, because based on the value, it will provide the multiple inputs and then we have to iterate all the inputs and then we have to select the value. So I will explain you using the website, then you easily understand what I'm trying to say. Just a second. So this is a one more, just a second, let's close this. One more sample website that I'm using here for the dynamic drop down purpose. Here you're able to see these are the dynamic drop down. If I type new, it will provide me around 10 to 11 input with all the city that is containing the new keywords. And if I type like BOM, that is for the Bombay, I'm getting the Bombay also that other city that is containing BOM keyword. So whatever the input that we are providing here, based on that the result are varying. So we can directly not say that just go and select the Mumbai or select the Boma and all. So first we have to provide the input, and then we have to take the list of the all the elements that are coming based on the input provided, and then we have to iterate the list, and then we have to select the desired value that we want to select. So for that, first we have to identify first this text box, input text. Then in that, basically we have to provide the value. First identify the text box. Just select this, and that is the text box. So either we can take a ID. I'm just checking with the ID, either it's unique one or not. Just put a hash symbol. It's unique, so we can take as a ID. So just copy that, and in the Visual Studio, I'm just uncommenting the code that is written for the drop down for the dynamic one. So I'm visiting that particular website that I'm using for a sample purpose, and then I'm writing the cy.get and the ID of that particular input box. In that we have to provide the input, and that input I am typing like a dot type, and I am typing new as a keyword. So it will successfully identify that particular element, and it will type a new keyword. After typing the new keyword, you are able to see we have multiple options available. So in these multiple options, suppose I want to select the new worm, then we have to, today the new worm is coming on the first position, maybe in tomorrow or maybe something that it will come on the third position or the fourth position or the fifth position, maybe position will change. So we have to iterate the whole list, and then we have to select that particular option. To identify the whole list, first we have to write the common selector. Using that, we can identify the particular it closes. So for identify this, just open, type the new keyword again. Just a second. This time. Okay, what happened? Just reload the website. Okay, so just type the new keyword and right click on this and inspect. So here you are able to see that is the list of the item. So that is the li list of the item one, that is contain the new one, and then you are able to see the ul, the upper list, and then the first identify, go with the top. First if I select the ID of this list item and control F, and if I put hash this, so we are not able to identify this because of maybe some other issues there. So again I will try. Okay, these are the list item, and that is the class, not the ID. So for the class, basically we have to put the dot symbol. Okay, so we are able to identify the 20 list item that is available for this particular keyword. So for that 20 item, if I go to that UL and scroll that 20 item, some option that is not coming inside the drop down also, that is also coming. So for that, basically we have to identify that uniquely. So first we have to identify the div, and then upper list, and then list item. So I have already created the CSS for that, so I will explain you. Just copy that CSS. So that is the unique CSS that is pointing to the particular spam. So what I have did, I have started from this class that is basically having that menu item spam, and then I have moved to that spam, this one, and the spam also we have the two spams. Like one is the having the class called city, and the second one that has the class called value new one. So I have passed the XPath is called spam where class equal to ct, because the first spam we have the class ct by, and the second spam we have the class ct. So basically we have to identify the unique locator that will return the list of the all the element that is contain the values. Just because it's contain a new one, if I go move to again one, this is contain a new Delhi and this one is new heaven. So all the whatever the spam or the div or that is contain the value, we have to identify that uniquely and write at the common XPath that will provide the list of the element. So we will iterate the list, and based on that we will select the element. So that is the common XPath for the all the CSS, sorry, for the all the items that we have selected. So I have written like cy.get and the type the new keyword here, and then I will provide the cy.get and the common CSS that is providing me the list of the element that is coming after the typing the new keyword. And then I'm putting the for each loop. Basically, that is the syntax for the for each loop dot each, and the $even index in the list. $even is basically the current element of the list. So here in the down, I am just taking the $even dot text means the text of the first element to the particular variable, and I'm the logging also to verify that it's taking all the input or not. And in the if condition, I am putting the text like the $even dot text if equal to new one, then only it will click, or as it wants it. So basically the new one is coming on the first place or the third place or the fifth place. Wherever it will come, it will scan the whole list, and wherever it will got that keyword new one, and then it will select that particular item, and then our loop will end. So for the handling the dynamic drop down, that is the procedure. Basically, first we have to type the keyword, and then we have to identify the locator using the common CSS, and then we have to iterate the list, and then we have to put a if condition, and then using if the condition fulfill, it will select the element. So that code will work every time. Means if that position of this new one change, that doesn't matter, it will execute. So just to execute this, just press a Control S and let's see it's working or not. Maybe it's start executing. It's loading this website. It's loading because it's contain the multiple images. That's why it's taking some time to load. I just pause the recording. Once it's selected, then I will resume again. So execution is completed. In the log, you are able to see like it's open the website, and then it's go to that particular, get that particular checkbox, and then it's type the new keyword, and then it will go to the loop, and it's called log all the item that is available for this particular new keyword, and then it will select the new one. So that is the way you can go and select the value from the dynamic dropdown. So in that, basically we have covered checkboxes and the radio button handling the check method, and uncheck method for the unchecking it, a static dropdown using the select method. For the dynamic dropdown, it's a little tricky part. First we have to type that particular input box, select the input box and type some keyword, and then we have to write the CSS for that common list, and then we have to provide a for each loop and put the some condition, and then we can select that particular element. So these are the way you can handle these types of the web control. In my next lecture, we will see some more things like alert, pop-ups, and some other, handling the iframes and all, and some or more interesting topic using the Cypress. So if you have any question, you can reach out to me on the LinkedIn. My LinkedIn URL is given onto the description box. And if you like this video, please subscribe my channel for the latest update. That's all. Thank you. Thanks for your time.